Maybe, I think last time she mentioned, the other night I was just reviewing the charter. I wasn't. And the charter is written as 7 o'clock. I mean, you actually have to go back and change the charter and change the time. I'm just curious. Not that it makes a difference, but the charter is stated 7 o'clock all the way through as far as the start time, 2.5 hour meeting process.
Well, Roger's the one who made the recommendation and said that we could do it, so you can ask him again.
It doesn't make a difference to me. I was just curious if people get, someone was pointed out. To me, it doesn't make a difference. But I was surprised they actually even listed a time like that in the charter to be a definite start time,
Probably should ask him at some point, too.
Having all legal meetings.
What about? Because he's going over the known should draft all the law.
You're in.
Just as heavy as supper, right?
Heard that bridge is coming together down there.
It
Chris
is.
has been giving me comments, but
Yeah, it's coming together. I think it's too bad they didn't start it a little sooner, though.
They're gonna get it done this year?
They have to, I think. Because they're supposed to get the stretch all the way to the settlement done, so I would assume, and they have to move half of the old bridge to get the new bridge in, so.
oh really? I thought it was all over to the other side. No.
Well, it was supposed to be, but in their plans, it should have gone a few more feet, and they didn't, I don't know.
There's going to be a bridge. It's just going to be
Right, right, but it's supposed to be finished, but with fall rains, I don't know.
No, I've had it.
George Shaw told me today that they're gonna be working right the 1st of November to get it all done. They expect to have it done at least
I imagine done to a point. I imagine they'll be coming back next spring and cleaning up and finishing some of the side
He
lawns.
says they're gonna put 3 coats on. They'll get 2 coats on.
If you look at Frost Hill Avenue, where they've already got the first layer down, and it's still a 6-inch drop. You come off the road, you're dropping 6 inches. So I mean, that's they put
I was surprised if he said he got the 3rd layer. Hilliard and this job, they're gonna public break.
if you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, roll call. Councilor Cody. Here. Councilor Crafts. Here. Councilor Larochelle. Here. Councilor Lunt. Here. Councilor Mason.
Here.
Councilor Pomelo.
Here.
And Councilor Bowie is here. Okay, first item, please, Beth.
Under public hearings, none. Under consent agenda, Order 2010-153, to approve the minutes of August 17th, 2010, and a poll permit for 57 River Road.
Make a motion that we accept the minutes, the consent agenda, the minutes and the poll permit.
I have a motion from Councilor Larochelle.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Councilor Mason. All those in favor?
Order passed, 7-0.
Okay, next item, please.
Under council orders, resolutions, and ordinances, Order 2010-154, Property Assessed Clean Energy Act, PACE Ordinance, final reading.
Let me address this.
Sure, please.
This is the final reading of what they call the PACE ordinance. It was legislated by the state and the towns if they want to participate in this program. It is a loan program for people who qualify to borrow money for clean energy on their homes. It's all administrated by a third party. We only take part in it by advertising about it and letting people know that it's there.
We had a first reading last meeting and a public hearing. Does council have any additional questions on this? Do I have a motion?
Mike,
Yes, Roger.
and this is going to be all done through the state, and it has nothing to do with us at all?
Right, yeah, it's all done by a third party, nothing to do with us. The only thing that's required based on the law is that we have to have an ordinance. And the ordinance we have in front of us is really basically provided to us by
By the state.
the state.
And an educational
Right.
Right, yep,
opportunity.
We'll have
here in town.
materials
Yep.
and things for the public.
correct. So we have a motion.
Yes,
Do
I'll
we?
make that motion.
I have a motion from Councilor Pomelo.
I'll second it.
I have a second from Councilor Larochelle. Any further discussion from council? Comments from the public?
Do you get applications here for that, or?
No, you'll have to call whoever the third party is. They have not,
We'll have literature here
Yeah.
in the town office that will kind of help explain the program and everything, but you have to contact a different entity in order to apply for the funding to support doing the clean energy effort.
Like information packet here or
Yep,
something?
yep, we will have literature and stuff like that here, yep.
Okay.
Any other comments from the public?
My question is a point of order. The Friday night's meeting was not officially adjourned with a motion and a seconded. Is this a legal meeting?
I believe so.
I believe so.
Yes, I mean, it's one of our normal scheduled meetings that we have.
But the
The Friday night meeting was a very special meeting.
but the previous one was not legally adjourned, so was that meeting recessed until now?
No, it was not recessed until now, it was closed.
It wasn't closed legally.
here we go.
Well, I guess we'll have to ask our attorney on what protocol we have to take there then.
You think?
So we have a motion on the floor. Any additional comments from public on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
We're doing a roll call vote.
Oh, you're right, we do have to, thank you, Beth. This needs to be a roll call vote. Apologize.
Councilor Lunt?
Yes.
Councilor Cody?
Yes.
Councilor Crafts?
Yes.
Councilor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Councilor Bowie?
Yay?
Councilor Mason?
Yes.
Councilor Pomelo?
Yes.
Order passed, 7-0.
Okay, next item, please, Beth.
Order 2010-155, moratorium ordinance prohibiting marijuana dispensary facilities, final reading.
Steve?
Yeah, this was a request by the council to put in place an ordinance giving a moratorium, so the council has an opportunity to look at the request that some people have made about having a marijuana dispensary here. This gives the council 180 days to have discussions on it to see if they want to prohibit it or allow it in Lisbon.
Do we have to make a motion before we can ask a question on this?
Sure, we'll get a motion on the table and we'll have a discussion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the order on the moratorium prohibiting the marijuana dispensary.
I have a motion from Councilor Pomelo. A second from Councilor Crafts. Discussion.
I'm just wondering if we have the additional information that we had talked about. I know that Steve had expected them to come to our last meeting on August 17th, and they didn't show, so I was wondering if there was any...
I have heard no more from
No
them
more,
at all,
okay.
so.
Any other discussion from council? Comments from the public?
Well, not having this dispensary be solely in the hands of the council, or will other people be open for discussion and voting?
Right now, the ordinance is being, should it pass, will be enforced by council to prohibit any dispensary for 180 days. Council then has to have discussion with public input as to how they want to move forward on a more long-term ordinance. It's more of to give us time to go through the details and the analysis of what it means for the community. Any other comments from the public? Seeing none, a roll call vote?
Counselor Pomelo?
Yes.
Counselor Mason?
Yes.
Counselor Crafts?
Yes.
Counselor Bowie?
Yay?
Counselor LaRochelle?
Yes.
Counselor Cody?
Yes.
Counselor Lunt?
Yes.
Order passed 7-0.
Okay, next item, please.
Other business, economic and community...
No, there's order 2010-156.
Sorry. Order 2010-156, tax rate of interest.
This was your request.
Right, this was some discussion that had taken place with council based on the whole tax issues and concerns we currently have going on to look at either eliminating or somehow doing something with the tax interest so that we're not charging an interest on late taxes due to this situation. So I'm bringing it up for council's discussion to see what they would like to do towards this. My recommendation is that we eliminate the tax interest for this year based on the situations that we're in while we're coming through trying to get the rest of our analysis we need on this particular topic.
I think that's the least we can do, given the hard time that we've put our constituents in. I think we have to do that.
Can councilors speak up so those out in the hall can hear, please?
We'll do our best. So I guess if council's in favor, I would entertain a motion for eliminating the collection of tax interest on the tax bills for this fiscal year.
I'd like to make the motion, Mike, to eliminate the tax on all tax bills for one full year until we get this mess cleaned up.
I'll
I have a
second
motion
it.
from Councilor Cody and a second from Councilor Mason. Any further discussion?
Just because this is different than we've done in the past years, I mean, is there any more guidance we need as far as would that be for the first half, up to the first half? Would that be considered the whole year without, I mean, is there any incentive with this to actually, to give for people to pay the first year, or the first, not the first part of the year? I'm just curious, because it's something we haven't done in the past,
Right.
that's all.
I mean, based on my understanding of what we've been told by legal counsel, that unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. Should we find any error in the commitment, there's nothing we can do to change that tax commitment this year. So therefore, we can't do anything for the bills that are due in March or anything. So my recommendation would be that we eliminate it for this entire year. so that there's no penalty invoked there, as well as other things that I think we'll probably discuss tonight that we're going to try and work on.
But unless arrangements are made, the due dates will still be the same due dates. It's basically just based on the interest itself.
Right, this is just
Wait.
based on the interest. I think council will be discussing tonight something to do with when those due dates are.
Okay.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from council?
Any consideration given to people that have already paid their taxes as far as it goes for paying it on time? And
No interest has been charged.
Well, no interest if you paid on time. I'm not sure if there's been any interest charged for people who haven't paid yet that have come in, but if so, I would recommend that we reimburse them
Just
that
like
interest money.
There has not been any interest charged to anybody.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from council? From the public? Yes, sir?
I have several. The first one is, on Friday night, I told you, or asked the council, that if you're going to have discussions like this that involve the town, and we know there's a big interest in this, because they were in that room all night Friday night, down the hall down there Friday night. Okay? And I suggested to you people to move this meeting to a facility that would allow these people to have seats so that they can hear you down the hallway and in there, so we know what you people are actually doing. Did you not hear the question? Or did you not hear what I asked? I mean, is there a problem in this room with the acoustics? Because this is ridiculous. You want to have a meeting and you have us here standing around. These people can't hear you down there. You knew this was going to happen because you were here Friday night, or at least your body was here Friday night. Okay? So this issue right now needs to be tabled until you can get a facility for these people and you announce what you're going to do to the town residents so that the real people can be here to make their comments to you before you make any decisions or vote on anything. That's point one. There is a check and balance in all government, all the way to the President of the United States. You made a comment that we're just have to live with this tax bill. Okay? Even if you found flaws in it, okay? We have to suck it up. No way. If your process is proper and it was done correctly, then I agree with you. But if there are fallacies in your system, in the manner in which it was inputted or calculated or whatever, because garbage into a computer is garbage out. Okay? Has anybody taken the voter's registration log by addresses, it's computerized, you can sort it by addresses, and bounce them against the number of accounts that are into your tax system to see whether or not you got them all? Because if you didn't get them all, where are we then? We're short now, so it ain't gonna hurt anything. You got a lot more work to do before you make these people pay their taxes that you guys screwed up, apparently. Now, Jerry can give you information. There are a lot of people here that can give you information. Okay? There are a lot of things that should have been done before this tax bill was ever issued. It should have not have been a closed item without the people in this town knowing about it before they got their tax bill. That's wrong. We hold special meetings all the time. If we realized there was a tax shortage or money shortage, why didn't we hold a special meeting for the town to have a say in what we're going to do? Maybe we didn't want to go 50% to 80%. Maybe we wanted to go 10% the first year, 10 the next, 10 the third year. There have to be alternatives. But because you didn't leave us with any, you want us to accept the fact that you can't change it. There are checks and balances. If it's screwed up, fix it. Don't make us suffer.
Mr. Baines first.
Can I speak from here?
Yes.
I can't hear you until I turn my hearing aid up either. I would ask about the length of time that was presented in the motion. It was stated that it would be for 1 full year, and that 1 full year is September 15th to September 15th. I would suggest that a motion be modified, to be amended rather, to indicate that it is through June 30th, because the liens will go out somewhere near the end of June on the unpaid balances. So I would suggest that it be only for the current fiscal year and not obligate a future council in that regard. Thank you.
I'm Don Fellows, and I don't think, I don't know whether this is a point of order or what, but my ears heard Roger make a motion that the taxes be eliminated, not the interest. And that's your motion on the floor. At least that's what I heard. And I think that's what's said. If that's what you meant, fine, but I don't think so.
I stand corrected, Don.
Tricky, yeah, you can eliminate all taxes.
Yes, Michelle?
Michelle Trammell. 2 years ago, when the tax bills went out, we switched from the duplicate to the current billing system. The first set of duplicate, when we changed over, the first bill that went out, as you recall, was wrong. There was about a 14% increase. The billing was incorrect. It had to be reprinted and redone, because I had come to you guys because I had issue with the fact we paid double the cost for switching. There was an error. It was corrected. I'm curious, why are you now saying that if there's an error found, why can it not be corrected? I don't understand that.
I'm only being told what our attorney said. I'm not sure if it's the same type of error. What the attorney has told us is that once you make the commitment, right? I don't think the error in the dual bill issue was based on the commitment. I think it was just a straight calculation error within the software that was going through. It wasn't based, so the commitment can't change.
Right. Well, there was
Right.
an issue in the sign-off.
If we find that the calculation for the commitment was wrong, and I'm sure council would agree with this, and as we try to work through this and have the information brought to us, if we find something's there, we're going to work to do whatever we can to find out how much we can change of that, right? I think it gets into more of the legalities of where it is in the actual process that the error was wrong, right? So if it's in the commitment number itself, which drives the mill rate and everything like that, I think that's kind of what we've been told, although I won't swear to it unless our attorney was here, but I haven't seen him yet, that that's what we can't change, right? But if it's if the software calculated the number wrong based on that same mill rate, then that is something I think that could be fixed.
Okay.
Right, and so those are the things that we're going to go try and work on here in the next week or two to try and bring this to closure so that we can make sense of all this and get to some type of resolution.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong in the way this went, though. In July, you guys voted on the commitment to go from 56 to 80%. So it was recognized at that point. You guys knew, you guys voted on what the mill rate would be, so you knew what the change. Okay. Overall, you guys made the vote on accepting the budget, and you guys are going to move forward. You, as a council, didn't vote on the commitment on the current tax bills that went out. Those went out because, if I recall, I heard Councilor Mason say she didn't know about this change until she got her bill. So that commitment is not something that all 7 of you made that commitment to, correct?
in the...
That is, right, the council votes on the budget and the revenue projections. The council has no say in setting the commitment. The council does not vote on the commitment, right? The council doesn't tell the assessor how to assess. The assessor assesses
that.
based on the state laws that he's required to do under the special tables that he's given to do that. So the council doesn't vote on a commitment or agree to a commitment.
Right, you
That's
agreed
done-
that you voted on the budget.
We vote on a budget and we vote on revenue, or we project revenues that feed into the commitment process along with what we get for homestead exemption and everything like that.
Right, but those commitments that you voted on for projected revenues changed in August.
No, they did not. Our budget has not
I heard about a
changed.
1.8 shortfall from
That-
one business.
That's a
and-
valuation. That's
Right,
a
but
change
that's
in
money that
valuation,
comes
which is
in.
done by the assessor.
Right, but that's
It's
money
not-
that comes into our town that makes up,
But it's not anything, right, that's the complicated piece of all this, which is difficult to understand, right? But that change in loss in valuation, or whatever we want to refer to it there, right, that is done by the assessor. It has no impact on our budget, and it has no impact on our revenues. It does have an impact when it's all pulled together as to what the tax rate then becomes, the mill rate becomes, to then drive tax bills. But we have no say in how that valuation changes.
no, I'm not saying you have a say in it, I'm saying that's something that changed after you guys
But
voted on the budget.
but it's nothing that we have control over,
No?
right?
No,
So I
no,
can't
I'm
go,
not
I
saying you
can't
have
go back
control.
and open up the budget because the valuation changed.
All I asked was, there was something that changed in August after you guys voted on the budget, because had you have known about this information that came in August...
Absolutely.
You certainly would not have approved the budget as it was in July.
We certainly would have looked at things differently, absolutely.
Had to go around the tree to get to the swing. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yes, we would have done that,
Something
yes.
obviously changed in August that would have affected our budget had you have known about it.
Correct.
Okay. So at this point going forward, I think what people want to hear is not that they can't have their bills changed. We've done that in the past. We did it 2 years ago. No matter what the error was, they were changed. If an error is found now, what people want to know is, can it be changed? And if so, why not? Because it's been changed in the past, no matter what the reason, why can't it be changed? Because we're certainly not going to expect to get a refund at this point if we've overpaid.
Well,
That
I
would be
mean-
ridiculous
I mean,
to
if-
think we're going to get it.
If the change results in the fact that something we can do that, we most definitely want to do that,
With what?
right? But I mean, again, we can't go back and change the budget, right?
Right. No, I'm
We can't
not
go back
asking
and
you to
change the budget. We can't change our revenues. The only thing we can hopefully find out is that in the valuation process, there was an error made potentially, either through the calculations or whatever, that doesn't impact the commitment of the mill rate,
Okay.
right? So, because I believe that's the piece, and I really need the lawyer here to explain all of that stuff, so that we can,
I believe he's here.
well,
He's hiding in the other room.
if he's here, it'll be, Roger, please join us. Mr. Terrio. I know. Well, what we're trying to discuss here and understand is, right, I believe what we've been told is we cannot change the commitment because that has been legally set by the assessor and it's been submitted to the state or whatever, maybe however it goes. So we can't go back and change those tax bills unless we found a potential error in the way the software potentially calculated it.
If there's a mathematical error or something of that nature, yes. Other than that, no.
Right. And we can't go back and open up the budgets, and we can't go change revenue projections.
There's
We
no
can't go in,
provision- Yeah, there's no provision in the
Right.
charter that allows it.
right, and we can't go in to pull surplus out to try and help offset that. All that stuff we've looked at, so.
Right. So if the assessing information overall is incorrect, you're telling me that can't be amended and the corrections can't be made if the assessments are incorrect?
No, he said if the calculations that the
Right.
computer spit out were wrong, then we can go back and make the adjustment, and what I would recommend, if that is the case, that we would look at making up the difference in the second billing, which is what we do sometimes in other cases.
If there's a problem with an assessment,
That's what I'm asking.
payment process,
Right, that's the point I wanted to make sure of, right? If it's something that the assessor valuated incorrectly, That has to go through the abatement process. We can't make a change or anything globally for that.
So every
Right.
single taxpayer would have to go through the abatement process versus you maybe having a QA
Well, I think
review
what
of it?
would behoove us as we try to go through this, right, is, which is one of the things I want us to have a workshop for and go through this stuff, is I want the town to find that error out, right? I want the town to find out, was there an error in how this was calculated or how our evaluation process went that made this error? So if we then find that valuation error, we'll work with the citizens of the community to go figure out how we come through the abatement process and work with everybody. We're not going to sit back if we find out what the error is. We're not going to sit back and just say, okay, you guys come in whenever you want, or if you want to, or stuff like that, right? I mean, I want us to be proactive in this approach, right? When we find out and really understand where's the underlying issue that's driving our taxes to go up, the 10 or 11% that we're seeing, right? But I think council needs to have a workshop with staff. I mean, I'll just go to it now, right? Just so we try to get this out, right? I'm going to ask, or I will ask tonight, as I'm doing right now, I want the auditors to come in and audit our commitment, right? I want it to be looked at. I'm asking for a workshop for staff to come to us and explain every one of the drivers that make up our whole tax process, right? There's a number of pieces that make this up, right? You have what your revenue is, right? What our loss of revenue was, what our budget increase was, right? What our debt increase was. There's also the whole new personal property piece, right, that came into play. There's this Dingley issue, right, that we're all talking about. Right, what I would like to have explained to council, right, through staff, is to show us the calculations of each one of those drivers and how that built the total percent increase for the taxpayers' taxes. So what, of each one of those, what percent are they to get you to that total 10 or 11? And if we can't prove that out, then we need to have found where the error is, right, as going through that process.
Right.
And then understanding what that error is, then we can decide what avenues we have to go make any changes. We may come through it and find out that everything was correct. The auditors may come back and say, you did it all right, everything's fine. We may come back and go through this detailed look and find out that everything stays the same as it was. But at least then we'll be able to explain to everybody, right, well, this percent was based on the Dingley thing, right? This percent was based on our bonds that we approved this past year or so, right, for the trails and stuff. And this percent was, because the budget increased by 2 or 3%, right? And at least that way we'll have some solid information that we can then bring forward to you and explain that to you. And I mean, that's my goal, and I believe that's council's goal of what we need to get to. And I'm trying to ask to see if we can have that done in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, I would like us to eliminate this whole interest thing for this year, which we're talking about, and Roger nicely changed it from the entire taxes to...
He did say tax, not interest. I'm glad that was caught.
And the other thing that council wants to talk about is, let's delay the whole payment process, right? Normally bills are due in September, right? Well, what if let's make it November, right? Give us time to come through this so that you don't necessarily have to come in and pay those bills, and hopefully we find out the answer ahead of time. We may find out that you still need to pay them, right? But, right, I mean, so that's the kind of approach that I think council wants to work through to try and come to grips with this issue. Because none of us are happy, and we definitely know you guys aren't happy, right? I mean, we've heard that, right? And we recognize that, but we all need to understand how it works, and this is a very complicated matter, right? It's not an easy thing. I mean, it's difficult for council just to understand it, let alone trying to explain it to, 9,000 citizens and how it all works, right? And not that we don't want to by any means, but it's a very complicated matter. So I would like council to get all this stuff together and understand it so that we can better present it to everybody.
So can we graciously expect that Mr. Dow will be out of this process? It'll be done totally independent of him?
I mean, yes, Steve, you can answer that.
One of the things we did today is we put together, and I put it out for everybody to see, some of the steps that we're going to take to correct some of the problems that we've found, and one of them was the assessing office. Mr. Dow is no longer in the town's employment. So that's one of the things that we addressed right away for several reasons. But anyway, the other thing is Mr. Van Tynen, who was the consultant that we hired earlier, who some of you who were here got to hear him speak about the land valuation that he looked at. He has agreed to come on board and work with us to go through all the data. He is very familiar with the data because he was here with Mr. Dow, entering data and answering questions and looking at things very thoroughly. So he's agreed to come in, review the office, review all the records, and stay as long as we need him here. And hopefully that's a month, maybe longer, till we know we have all the right data, everything is correct. And if we have to make changes, he's the person I would choose to help us through that, along with legal counsel. And then tomorrow I'll call our auditing firm, who we've had for a number of years, and ask them to come in and look at the commitment amounts that we used. I think it would make more sense for the bill to come in first and make sure the data is correct that was put into the system. And then we could move forward. And Mike's already covered some of the other things, that we moved the tax date back. We had no plans to charge interest, at least for another month when the bills went out. I think if anybody has concerns and they want to have an abatement process to look at, you need to come in and see Mr. Van Tynen. Once I have his hours and when he'll be here, he can walk you through that. In the meantime, if there are citizens who need assistance. I know some people have said that, asked out front. We've got to get to our staff tomorrow and let them know that we do payment plans. We do it when we have people who have gone through the lien process. We work out whatever they can afford and move it forward, so make it work for anybody. So those are some of the things that we're looking at to do.
So the interest and potential penalties that sometimes are
That will not
imposed, that
exist.
will, I just want to make sure the penalty piece is included in
Right,
that.
I mean,
We've only discussed
well, that's the
interest.
motion on the floor right
It's the
now.
interest, right.
Is to eliminate that for this year, any interest payments, and then all these other things that we've discussed to continue going forward those in a short order time, because this isn't something that you want to prolong and drag out. It needs to be done quickly within the next couple of weeks, so that we can come to some type of resolution as to what the end result really is.
Right, so Mr. Van Tynen he'd submitted a bid, we had a contract with him to do the land piece. He's going to do something similar, subcontract, or
Yes.
to some extent going to help out with this piece of it then?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a wait and see
And he
then.
will be paid out of the current assessing budget, so that there'll be no additional cost based on a budget perspective.
Right, because that
for
salary line's not
Right.
going to be utilized, so, no, I get that. Okay.
Lori?
Couple of questions. At one point in our discussions, we talked about there being a certain number of days or a period of time that a taxpayer must come forward and question or dispute their assessment. Is that from September 1st, when the commitment was made? There was like
Yes.
185 days?
Yes.
So in lieu of us doing this process, is the time clock already ticking, where if somebody has a question about their assessment, they need to come forward now, because we don't know how long the period of time is going to be before we really, we're hoping to have answers over the next few weeks.
If you have questions about the assessed value, those are the things that we can look at and should not impact what Mr. Van Tynen is going to be looking for. Those values, you come in, if you have a question to go through, Mr. Van Tynen will look at the property and make sure that he feels it's assessed correctly.
And the second part of that is that this changing the interest or not applying interest to tax bills is both personal property and real estate property.
It's your entire tax bill. Yep.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's kind of late in the game for the council to start learning how this system works. Never mind the town manager is supposed to know how this process works. Like you're getting spun up after the train wreck. My name's Bob Donovan. I'm a former selectman from 1979 to 1991. 12 years. What has happened here is totally unacceptable to the taxpayers of Lisbon and the council needs to take quick and aggressive action to restore some credibility, and that this relatively new form of government is accountable to the people and not out of control. There's no reason why this meeting couldn't have been held in a gym. The previous assessor appraiser caused no harm to the town of Lisbon, yet he was forced out. He repeatedly requested monies to upgrade the values of the properties over a 4-year period, but was repeatedly denied. How can the mill rate drop from 25 plus to 21 plus, yet the town budget increased 3%, which should have increased the mill rate to cover the increase? The letter of an across-the-board levy on property values is a scam, but avoids bringing the issue to the people and the council for an approval of the budget. This kind of runaround had to be known by the assessor appraiser and the town manager must have condoned. Where was the chair of the council on this? He is the closest to the manager and should have kept the council informed. The full council should have approved a final budget, and from what it was in the papers, a lot of the folks didn't know about this increase levy until they got the information in the mail. I recommend that the assessor appraiser and the town manager be fired, and that the council reorganizes and remove the current chair of the council. The council members should reevaluate how they serve the taxpayers of Lisbon. Again, quick and aggressive action needs to happen by the council to ensure the taxpayers of Lisbon that you are protecting their interests.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Dot Fitzgerald, and Mr. Boyd, did you say that if people want an abatement, they have to, provide information to the, the assessor? And,
They need to come in and see the assessor.
right. Now, how are we
discuss
supposed to
that.
get, how is an individual taxpayer supposed to get the information necessary for an abatement? Do they have to go out and hire an appraiser?
I don't, Dot, to be honest with you, I don't know everything that's required for an abatement. I don't know what information is needed in order to, to challenge what the assessor does. I mean, I haven't seen the abatement form or what things go into that. I mean, that's an assessor's job.
There's a separate paper.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I had an abatement done years ago on my house because I questioned the tax amount. And basically, the assessor will go out, take your card on your house, come to your house, and see if all the data that's on the card matches up to what you're being taxed on. In my particular case, it said I had a fireplace, which I didn't have. So I ended up getting that abated. My taxes came down a little bit. So it's basically just going back and reassessing your house and making sure there's no inaccurate information to start with. Then if you believe that it's, it's still assessed too high, well then possibly an appraiser would have to come in to prove your point, but that's where you start with the abatement process.
Each and every taxpayer needs to remember and understand that their valuation has gone from 56% to 80%. So you add another 20% onto that 80%, and this is what the assessor is telling you your house is valued at, your property, that you can sell it for. Lots of luck. Another thing I want to bring up, there's another paper out there that says tax billing steps of action. Number 2, fill vacancy until a new assessor is hired. Who hires these people? Who hired the assessor? Who hires these people that work for the town?
Town manager does.
How well did you check out Mr. Dow when you hired him?
We checked his references. I checked people who he didn't list as references who I know.
Who's we?
Who's we?
Yes, you said we checked. Who's we?
I checked his
You checked.
references. We had an interview committee, this is how we do it here, who gets put together to review the applicants, and we choose the ones that we think are best qualified, and we interview them. Mr. Dow was one of those. okay? The group that sat down and interviewed him and all the others made that recommendation based on if we came back with his reference checks were okay. And I checked references that he had given us, along with several other people who he had worked for, and I got good references for him.
I understand that he's been let go from various towns that he's worked for. Didn't find that out?
I did not find that out. I was not told by the people there.
Who was on this committee? Who was on this hiring committee?
I'd have to look back and see. It's over a year ago.
I'd like to keep this discussion around the order that's on the floor, which is our tax
Well,
rate
it kind of
interest.
is, because if we're going to have,
You're discussing a personnel matter and a personnel approach right now, Dot.
well, yes and no, because if you're going to be hiring another interim assessor, that is pertinent to what's going on right now.
Mr. Bauer?
I recently had an appraisal done on 2 pieces of property in Lisbon Falls. Within the last 15 months, I had it professionally appraised, and I had the figures. I met with Mr. Dow yesterday, and a question out of that, do I have to meet with a new person now that he's no longer employed by the town? But anyway, in going over the figures with him, I find that I have been overcharged by $1,000 for one tax year on 2 pieces of property. I had the professional appraisal, and I have the documentation for that. And in comparing with what he has, and based on your 80% rule, I have been overcharged by $1,000, $700 on one and $300 on another. Do I now have to meet with Mr. Tynan and go through the same thing, or is my case started so that I have to, and I've already paid these 2 tax bills too, so I'm wondering, do I get, if we find it's true, do I get a rebate or not a refund, rebate, let's say, on next half year's taxes?
Yes.
Now, do I have to meet with a new?
I don't know if
If you haven't filed an abatement form, then you need to meet with Mr. Van Tynen.
Well, we went through some paperwork yesterday. I'm not sure what we did fill out.
Okay.
But he agreed with my figures. And I had, as I said, I have the
I'll check his
appraisals.
office tomorrow to see what's there.
Okay. I just don't want to think that it's being taken care of and then find out later on that, oh, I'm past, as Pamela said, 180 days.
Yes, ma'am. Can you come to the microphone, please?
Mr. Chairman, could you ask them
This gentleman that we have to see for our taxes, is he an accredited assessor?
Yes, he is.
He is.
He's been in the business a long time. He works all over the state. He also does appraising for large equipment like in the mills or in the Dingley Press types of stuff, or the dam, hydro dam. He just finished a reval over in Durham for them. He's got more than one employee, and he's not the only one. So he's very competent, and the council has had the opportunity to sit with him. We contracted with him to look at our land value to start, and I think the council was very comfortable with him, and he's able to talk the language that everybody understands.
Thank you.
Mike,
Yes, Roger.
would it be a good idea at this point to establish a time frame so that people don't get caught up in the 180 days or whatever it is? Well, we're going to have a considerable amount of problems here, and it's probably going to go by the 180 days. Now, as a council, do we have the authority to change that?
I'm not sure where our attorney walked off to. Roger?
180 days puts us into March. It goes from September 1st.
6 months, right?
Yeah.
We're in your keep tonight.
I was going to say, we should
Roger, the question from Councilor Cody is, do we have the authority to adjust the 180-day time limit?
That's under state statute.
Once a
Okay, under state,
It's 185 days.
Okay,
And it's from the date of commitment, which was approximately September 1.
yeah.
So it's 185 days from September 1, so everybody knows.
Is that to start it or to
File
complete
that
it?
form by that day.
Right. So is that something we're gonna put out to let people know this for sure?
Yes.
Probably on your website's a good place to put it.
That anybody that does have an issue?
Ma'am.
Some people in this room don't have
Yep,
websites.
no, we can do that.
Shouldn't he be using a microphone so everyone can hear?
So what our attorney said was that we cannot change the time period for your ability to go through an abatement process, and that time period is 185 days, and it starts from the day of the commitment, and the commitment date was right around September 1st. So it's 185 days from September 1st, and you have that time frame to question your taxes. Now, I mean, council, and I believe what Mr. Cody's asking for is for us to set some kind of a time limit on it. I was looking for something around 2 weeks to try and get through this stuff. I mean, I would like to do this in...
I just don't want to have any of our constituents out there looking to file a form to adjust their taxes and not be able to do it because they went over a deadline. That would just be an extra slap in the head that they don't need at this time.
And I think we should hold a meeting at the school, as was suggested by the
Yeah,
people,
we will.
that we should actually...
We will do that.
Have space.
When it comes to discussing taxes, we will hold them at the school from now on.
At the high school and not the new elementary school, because the acoustics in there are very bad.
Okay, we can look into that. You have a comment from the public here on this?
Make a suggestion that when they do have a meeting set up that they're going to hold to address the taxes at the high school or wherever you choose to hold them, that not only are they posted on the sign out here, that they are published in the paper, where some of us very seldom get past this sign on a regular basis, and we don't always see that the meeting's been scheduled, and sometimes it has to come by word of mouth. So for the people that, you know, there are people that are affected by this that don't use computers or the internet, etc. They need another form of notification such as the newspaper.
What does it cost to send out a mailing if we want to send out a letter to everyone in town?
Oh, it's...
Pretty expensive.
Pretty expensive.
$1,000, couple
Not
thousand?
quite 1,000. I think it's more like 600.
$600?
But we have it in our budget to do that.
Okay.
That's another question, Mike.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name's Tom Evertson. One thing I haven't heard tonight and had answered is why in the first place are our taxes so high? Mr. Cody, on previous meeting, made a motion to have the taxpayers vote on the budget, to give us an input on where our money is being spent. And I do believe that it was insinuated that the townspeople don't have enough intelligence to make that kind of decision. There was other people here. Mr. Cody brought that up. And it was just like a wind tunnel going in one ear and out the other. You guys have absolute control on where our money goes. We don't have any control on what's being spent, where, on what. The power needs to go back to the people and not just up in a few chairs up there. Thank you.
Can we get back to the question?
Yeah, I'd like
We're
to.
supposed to be focusing on tax rate of interest.
Yeah.
Yes, again, I want to remind people that the order on the floor is on the tax interest rate, so I would like to keep our discussion focused on that. There is a section in our agenda for additional audience participation, so if your comments or questions are based on the tax interest, I'd like to keep our comments to that matter.
So you want me to sit down?
I'm not sure what year, Mr. Blake, I'm not sure what year.
I think that is relevant to what
Well-
we're saying, because if the budget wasn't so high, we would...
Excuse me, you don't have the floor right now.
So I heard the assessor was fired today because of this issue, and it always seems like when there's an issue like this that comes up, somebody has walked out the door, that's the fall person. I've known what's been going on for a long time. I think that it should come down to what somebody had mentioned earlier. The ones responsible should take the burden. If you have a bill on anything else, you can punch that computer out and get it all straightened out, and I don't even like them. If your check isn't there when you want it at the end of the week or the end of the month, they can write you another one, they can punch in another one and get the hours that you wanted and your money. Why is this such a difficult issue to get this straightened out? What's wrong with all the politics and the stuff that comes and goes here that nobody even hears about? I think it's about time that the council and the town manager ought to be held responsible for a lot of these problems that have been going on. And most of them are right next door with the big budget that they got. I'm just waiting to see them bring in their helicopters.
You're straying from being on the tax interest.
It is a tax interest. Because they
It's
spend...
the interest rate we charge on unpaid taxes.
My name's Bob Selinsky. I wasn't going to speak tonight because I spoke last night, but after talking with the town manager yesterday to find out why we made mistakes on taxes, I'm talking about taxes, he told me that Dingley was assessed at decrease of $11 million from $32 to $21 million. That they had their personal property assessed. The first time they ever had it assessed, never had it assessed before. A depreciation was given to them for $11 million. That averages about 32%. They made $285,000 out of that cut. I don't know who authorized that. He said the computer did it. But for your interest, your property went up 31%. That's the figure they used, because you multiply your property by 31% and you find out that's what your taxes went up. At the same time, Dingley went down 32% on their personal property that they never had inventory before, and they did it in-house. Okay, I called somebody I know that does this kind of appraising. He does it for all the towns. He says to do this equipment on a personal appraisal, you can't do it in-house. You have to go to the business. They have upgrades on the material that you don't know about. I know you said you had the date on it when they bought the material, but they have updates. They bring other materials in. You have to go in-house. You can't do it here. So they got a decrease of $285,000 at the assessor. I talked to you yesterday. I left here 20 minutes of 3. At 10 minutes past 10, Mr. Cody called me and said, your tax assessor was fired. I thought that was real strange. I talked to you about him. You said he was a good guy. An hour and a half later, he's gone. Bang. What happened? That's all I have to say.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Council? The motion is to eliminate the tax interest for the next fiscal year.
And penalty.
And penalties, right. Interest and the penalty. We did have a comment suggesting we change that to June 30th, based on our end of the fiscal year. Not sure what council feels about that, rather than have it fall over into the next.
Well, that's what I was mentioning. I couldn't say it as well as Mr. Maines, but that's what I was asking, if it was just through this billing cycle, meaning that it stopped when the next tax commitment came forward, that, you mean this wouldn't carry over into it?
Right, it would only be for this current tax commitment.
If somebody is having a real hardship, I would hope that that could be considered even if we stop the deadline at a particular date. If we're going to have a hardship case, we should be continuing to work on it beyond that point.
I don't dispute that, yeah.
We always do.
We have in the
Yep.
past, so I'm sure.
We always do.
Always do. Yeah.
So, do we want to amend the motion, or do we just want to go forward with it being for?
I think we ought to amend it.
Okay.
Because a new council will not want to have to be dealing with that in the future.
Okay.
So we'll move
So
the
you're going to
amendment.
restate it?
Did you?
So, I believe Mr. Kraft just made a motion to amend the original motion to have a deadline of June 30th, 2011.
I'll second that.
I have a second from Councilor Lunt. So, all those in favor of the amendment?
Order passed 7-0.
All those in favor of the amendment, the motion as amended?
Order passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there's a lot of us out in the hallway that can't hear anything, and once in a while use the mic, a lot of times you don't. Would you please have people use the microphone or make some arrangements so that we can hear? We don't have room enough in here to stand or sit. We would like to at least hear what's going on out there. Thank you.
We'll do our best. Okay, next item, please.
Next item is other business, economic and community development update.
We're actually going to move that item because we're not prepared to discuss that item tonight.
Okay.
So if we could move on to the next item, please.
Is B, Finance Director's update.
Ooh, Jessica.
Hello. This is the first report that you have in front of you that you're obtaining for this year. At this point, there's not a lot of information on it for you, as we're just beginning the year. Within the Finance Department, we've been busy wrapping up the year-end work with the auditors, and pending any follow-up items with them, we should be looking to get draft financial statements soon. Given the duration of the year-end work, we are still in the process of entering what has come in for this year to date, which is reflective in the packages that you do have. Having said that, we are on the tail end of the September collection of taxes. At this point, we have collected 84% or 4.1 million of the September portion of the tax commitment. Compared to last year at this time, we were 91% collected, so the funding is coming in. Revenue sharing is coming in. We are 22% collected, which isn't bad, but it's certainly not at the level that it has been in years past. And we're still very early in the game for collection of that. We've paid out our county tax, which was $580,000. Your current reports in front of you do not reflect the carry forwards as we've been going through the year-end work mainly at this point. So those have been entered this week. They will be reflected in your September reports. But other than that, we're looking to be on track to where we should be.
Questions of Finance Director? Seeing none. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you.
Okay, next item, please.
Is C, Town Manager's report.
As you can see, when you came in tonight and yesterday, the Public Works Department is fixing the drain out front. It's hopefully going to be done soon. It's been a problem ever since the building was here. Every time we got a hard rain, it couldn't drain well, so we expect that to be done by tomorrow. As you probably have noticed, and I'd let you know, the Rosie Bradley, our Economic Development Director, has given me her letter of resignation. She's been offered another position closer to home. I'd just like to thank her for her 2.5 years of service. We are advertising for that position, but we will put together a committee, and I'm sure Councilor Mason will be part of that since she's been so active with that office. And at this time, I'm not so sure we're going to fill that position. We'll evaluate it when the applicants come in, and we'll do the interview process and see what we have. The well contamination issue, we were again back out to Mr. Upham's. We were out at Mr. Upham's this Monday, yesterday, trying to validate the gallons per minute. We have not heard on that. We expect to hear this week. The Public Works Department, The installation work is almost completed. This is from our efficiency grant. We got it from the PUC, and hopefully the boiler will be in before winter. I'm not quite sure what's holding that up, but it's been ordered. And after that, whatever we have left will be done with the MTM Center. We'll be replacing some of the windows there to make it more energy efficient. Also, there's been a lot of conversation about dispatch over the last year and a half. The PUC has been pushing to get some input on consolidating their PSAPs to get it down to 16 if they can. Mike Bowie and I attended a meeting at the Commissioner's office last Wednesday. The county and voted to present to the PUC that the county dispatch will become the PSAP for this region, and we're also making a proposal to consolidate all the dispatch as long as it's economically feasible for all the smaller communities, and efficiencies will be found. So that's, a deadline was given for 2012 to hopefully have that completed, as long as everything goes as was asked. And that's all I have.
Can we comment on this, Mike?
Certainly. Questions, or whatever?
Well, one thing that I'd like to bring up is the fact that under the strained times that we're under and the other issues that we have to deal with, I'd like to see this replacement for Rosie be put off for at least 6 months to a year to see if we can't work through some of our other financial issues first. We cannot put a burden on our taxpayers next year as we did this year. We've got to find ways around it. And I think eliminating that position for 6 months to a year and give it some thought and see how the economy goes, I think would be something that would be appreciated by the taxpayers.
A lot of hard work has gone into that department. I know there are several here in this audience that do not agree with Rosie's position. I've worked very, very closely with Rosie. We are currently involved in a downtown network program. It's a very successful program. Over 2,500 communities in the United States use the program. And if we were to completely end the position, I'm not saying we have to keep it full-time, but if we were completely end the system, we would lose any momentum that we have gained. We have several people that are looking at developing the mill. We have several other people that have been here looking at other opportunities here in this town. I understand we have a heavy tax burden right now, but economic development is very, very important in this town. And for us to just totally ignore it as it doesn't exist, we'd be doing ourselves more harm than we would good. So it's something to consider. I understand your concerns, but you're going to lose a lot of what you've gained if you do that. Thank you.
Any other comments on the town manager's report? No? Okay. Next item, please.
Is audience participation. At this time, those in the audience who wish to address the council may come forward. Please use the microphone at the podium.
Do we have any additional audience participation? No, doesn't have to be.
Yeah, I'm Mildred Ryder, and I live on Route 9. I've lost part of my land. I've done no repairs on my house. I'd like to know why my taxes went up. You have proof that I have less land now than I had last year. Why'd they go up? Can anybody answer that?
I cannot answer that. I mean, I would think the same way you did. If you lost property, then
I have.
your land value would go down
It should go down. It went
to some
up.
extent.
Well, I'm in the same boat you are. I also live on Route 9, and the state also took a big slice out of my land too, and my taxes also went up, so I understand where you're coming from. I think it's just because all we did is they took the existing data and multiplied it. It wasn't an actual reval. So, we have to go in for an abatement, those of us who live on Route 9.
I sit on a cement platform. I don't even have a cellar. And my taxes on my house and land both went up. I think somebody should come check my property and house. It should go down, not up.
That's what the reval's for.
And to keep it on the tax thing, you say to keep it on the tax thing? If we would lower our police force and their toys, I think our taxes would go down considerably.
Yes, sir.
Ed Cornell, Lisbon resident for 9 years now. I had a few things that I wanted to mention that hopefully we can come to an agreement here tonight on a couple of items. Our economic developer, we paid for her school?
No, you did not pay for her school.
We didn't pay for her school?
Absolutely not. She's paid her own way.
With the money that we paid her?
Yes, that's her salary that you pay her for all the
Right.
work she does.
Okay. So this wasn't in addition to her salary, this was what her salary sign-on was?
She got paid wages like everybody in this audience who works gets paid.
This was her sign-on salary? That's
Yes,
what I'm
that was her
saying.
salary. She,
I wanna know
no
that.
money from your budget paid for her education. She has paid for that out of her own pocket. And I don't know how that rumor started.
I don't know
That is
either.
not true.
Okay, that's good. We appreciate that. And I want to ask, does our town manager still accept a paycheck in any form for gas mileage per diem above his contractual award to be the town manager?
No. I actually, was it a year or so ago, I reduced my contract amount for that gas mileage, and I also did not take the increase that was in my contract. I took 3% that year like all the other employees. I took a $2,500 cut in my pay that was in my contract.
And I would like to add that he volunteered to do that.
And he volunteered to do that? Okay. Now, and you deserve that, all right? Because the rumors are floating around that you're taking an extra $2,500 a year out of our pockets for gas mileage per diem.
Not true.
To go back and forth to work in addition to your pay. 80,000, right?
I couldn't tell you.
You should be able to tell me. You should be able to tell me. I know what my amount is. You don't know how much you make?
I make around 82.5. I'd have to look.
82.5. That 2.5 is the gas mileage per diem. We need a lawyer that reads the purchasing requirement laws.
This is in the program.
Go back, I'm just going to step back a little bit here.
Russell Brooks is doing it to me.
Here we go, we're gonna get a little tough. And when tough gets going, all of a sudden we have counselors and workshops making decisions for us. And that ain't right. This is what the people need to do.
All workshops, the public's invited. Every workshop you've ever had, the public's invited.
Make the public workshop right here in the public then.
We do.
We do.
We do.
We all are.
You guys head off to a different room.
Never have been.
Never has happened.
Never have been.
No.
And they can't take votes.
Right.
Okay.
No voting in the workshop. Dot, you don't have the floor right now.
Right.
Okay. We wanted to refer back to our purchasing. I understand we needed a certain device, probably a year ago or so. And our lawyer said, it's okay, you can go ahead and buy it in pieces and then assemble it, and then it costs over $100,000. If an item costs over $100,000 and we're to purchase it, aren't we supposed to vote for it before it's purchased?
I can explain that a little bit. The purchase you're talking about is a part of our public works. In the past, we've actually had dump trucks that after 3 or 4 years, the body was usually rusted out before the truck wasn't any good, which is kind of a waste, because unfortunately, we couldn't use them anymore.
I understand.
When I came on, that was one of the first things that we were going through, and Charlie Smith was working with the public works. I actually purchased a stainless body that would hopefully go at least 3 to 4 lifetimes, if not beyond. So we're looking to buy a body that would live through many trucks, which only makes sense. I mean, it's just a smart decision to make. When the purchase was, there was a different, you actually bought a cab and chassis, and you actually bought a piece of equipment like a snow plow or a body. So at the end of the day, I mean, it wasn't a all-one purchase. that body was built or bought to go on many trucks, not that particular one. So again, it's one of those things, you can kind of look at it in many different ways, but it wasn't a piece that was going to be bought at one time, used on one piece of equipment, then go away with that one piece of equipment. So I mean, it's...
Right, and that's exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Is you purchased it in pieces and then assembled it all together, and when you purchased all those pieces, the payment was above the $100,000, which, aren't we supposed to vote on that?
He says,
Yes.
Go ahead.
that body, what he's trying to say is the body in the truck always, that doesn't stay together for the lifetime of the truck.
Right,
We buy bodies all the time, separate body.
right.
So the...
Per individual item.
Yeah, per individual item. That's how we purchased them. The ordinance says it has to be an individual, if it's an individual purchase over $100,000, then it has to go out to the public in a vote.
Right.
So my conscience is completely 100% clear on the process that we took on purchasing that. We looked out for the best interest of the town in replacing equipment. We also stepped up and bought stainless steel so that we get a longer lifetime out of it, which also drove the cost up, so that the taxpayer would get a bigger bang for their buck.
Well, when it went over 100,000, it was supposed to go to the residents. It wasn't supposed to
No,
stay over there.
no.
And it was not purchased
Not even this budget year.
in the appropriate manner. You cannot
It's on the
purchase
floor right now.
bits and pieces.
Let him finish. and you-
That equipment purchase wasn't
And
He has the floor,
He has the floor.
so I can't reference that. Okay, I'll wait my turn.
And our town budget did have errors in it. And did our errors get straightened out? We had people that requested, there was one in particular, a request for 9,000, and we granted them the previous year's 10,000. We had $13,000 in differences at the end of the budget.
Not sure what you're referencing.
So, okay. And then, my last item is our mill rate went down. That was nice. But our taxes valuation went up. Did we know as a public that you were going to approve that valuation? Was that something that was put out to us to approve the valuation?
Not to approve, because the tax assessor is the only one that changes valuation, right? We did have public hearings and public meetings in discussing the whole reevaluation process and what was the best approach for us to take as a community, right? And it came through as the best approach was to look at it and doing, because we had tried a number of times, as has been mentioned earlier tonight, to try and do a complete reevaluation, which is really the true, fair, and equitable way to levy taxes across the community. But every time we went, and this is the old town meeting forms of government, we went for that money, which was $300,000 to $400,000, right? It was always voted down. The taxpayers of this community never wanted to go do a total, complete revaluation. So, in order to try and get to a fair and equitable approach, council has said, let's try to do it in phases. And so that was the approach we took, right? We've done a land piece, right? And so we looked at doing the land evaluation change only, right? And then we were going to apply that this year. Well, in discussions with the individual who did it and council, as well as some people from the public who had input, they said that really wasn't fair because you really needed a true reevaluation. But the taxpayers are losing some money out of not getting additional homestead reimbursement, tree growth, and potentially veterans reimbursements, right? So the thought process was, right, and if nothing changed, let's just pretend that nothing else was going to change in the entire process of how we commit and set taxes, if we raised everybody by the 30% that's being referenced, that would bring everybody up to 80%, which is just slightly above what the state would like to have you at. And then that allows us to get additional homestead. If you looked at your tax bills this year, compared to last year, your homestead was probably, it was at 56%. Now, last year, your homestead was worth $13,000 roughly. Okay, that's what the state said homestead was worth. But we only got 56% of that, right? Because that's what our valuation is. So we got, what, about $6,500, $6,600 of that $13,000, right? Well, this year, the state actually reduced the 13 to 10, right, to help complicate the matter. So they took money away from us, which the state is good at. But because we went to an 80% evaluation, you're going to get $8,000 for homestead, which is about $1,000, $1,400, $1,500 more than you got last year, right? So that's what bringing up your land value helps do. It gives you some other things. But the true fair and equitable way is to do a total revaluation. It costs a lot of money. And so far, the town hasn't wanted to do that. So council has tried to take steps in doing it in a phased approach.
Okay, we jumped to our 50% level, which is how much higher than what the state wants us to be at?
The 50 is lower than the state wants us at a minimum of 70. A minimum of 70.
We're at 80.
For evaluation.
And we're at 80.
Just went
No, well, we were at 56 and now we're at 80, yes.
Now we're at 80, and they want us
And the
at
reason
70.
we went to 80, to help explain that, is we went to 80 because it's going to take us time to complete the phases. So each year, we're going to continue to go down again, right, until we get the full reevaluation done. So until we can get out and measure all the buildings and talk with you and relook at the card process, as Dale explained and said, you got hardwood floors, you got this, oh, you don't have the fireplace, that type of stuff, and go through all of that and measure everything, right, that's going to take some time to do, especially doing it in a phased approach. So as that approach goes on, the 80% next year could be, I don't know, 78, 75, 77, so now you're going to lose more homestead, right? So it's a whole timing issue of how we can get this all done so that it's really fair and equitable. The best way to do it is go out and have a whole reevaluation done within a year, right? But that costs, $300,000 to $400,000, and so far what we've heard from the citizens is, on the 3 or 4 times we've gone to them, we don't want to invest that kind of money to do it. So we're trying to do it piecemeal.
That's because we don't have that kind of money to do that.
Right, so we're trying to do it piecemeal and gradually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to
Yes,
say
Dale.
something. While we were talking about a lot of rumors there, and that got clarified, I just wanted to tell you how rumors, I had a call this morning, this morning from a prominent business person in town that informed me that she was told the night before from her daughter that she heard that Dale Crafts doesn't pay any property tax in town of Lisbon. I really wish that was true. So just to clear it up, because this is public information, between Topsom 1 property and Lisbon's 4 properties that I own, I pay $32,200 every year. So if you hear the rumor that I don't pay taxes, then here's the bills to show you. So I'm just saying, we just listened to a bunch of rumors that weren't true. And when you sit up here for $1,500 a year and spend many, many, many and hundreds of hours of times up here, and then rumors float around like that, I tell you, it makes you want to quit the council and go back to having fun. So, all the things that you're upset about, and I am too with my tax bill, we do good things up here. We do, most of this council tries to look at the taxpayer and try to keep the cost down. We did that through the budget process. We got blindsided, but we're all taxpayers too that got blindsided. My taxes went up $2,300 in 1 year. So I know you're mad at us, and you have the right to be, but we're trying our best, and there's some problems that we need to get to the bottom to. And we're asking for the next couple of weeks to bring some professionals in to look at this and get to the bottom of it. So please, don't believe every rumor you hear. And if you hear a rumor about us, please call us and just ask if it's true. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Larry Fillmore. I have several questions. The first one is, the tax assessor was fired today, is that correct?
I believe it was
Yes, he
yesterday.
was, yesterday.
Okay, and that indicates that he did such a good job over this tax assessing that we let him go? Is that what we're saying? Or are we,
That's a personnel problem.
Are we acknowledging that there was something in his manner or his professionalism that caused him to be released? Because if there was, then we have a problem. And we need to get with the lawyer over here and find out if we can fix this. Now, I know you said, once it's etched in stone, it's etched in stone. I got that. I heard you loud and clear. But because of all the inconsistencies in what's been said here and throughout Friday night, we have to have some kind of a relief in a government form that has checks and balances to prevent things like this from happening. Like I said before, if the process is fine, I don't care. You did it, fine. If it works, fine. Okay. But if you got problems, and I'm sure you do, okay, then we need to have some kind of relief for us here in the audience. That can't be a just closed issue.
I don't think you've heard from council that it is a closed issue. I think you've heard from council tonight that we're trying to get the correct information together and go through some processes to bring this and resolve this situation. And then whatever comes out of that, whatever relief, if available, can be done, will be done.
I understand that you said that we're going to look at it and do all that, but you said also, that's in the future. We need relief now, and you said there's nothing you can do. Once the assessor etched this in stone, it's case closed. You said that yourself.
I did say that because if it depends on what the issue is. We haven't, right? Council needs to come through what is really driving this issue, right? I talked about it earlier, and I don't think people really want to hear me repeat myself again, but we talked about this earlier. So as we can get to the bottom of this and find out where, if any, problem exists, then we can make a decision based on whether it's legal or not, what things we can do going forward.
Okay.
But we need to get to that point
I
first.
understand that. Then you're not going to tell this audience or anybody else that what's done is done and you can't unscrew it. Is that right?
No, the only thing I'm going to tell you that what's done is done is I can't change the commitment if it's been done correctly, right?
That's fine.
I can't change that.
I don't have an issue with that.
Can't change the commitment.
I don't have an issue with that. The second thing is, we went from 56% to 80%. Okay, that's 24% in the personal property. Did every department in the town of Lisbon take a 24% cut in all their operating systems? Or whatever accounts you want to say that they're sitting in? Did we get a 24% cut on every department, not just us, on personal property tax? And the last thing is, if you say this is in phases, and this is phase one, what can we expect for phase two? Okay, because I'm not looking forward to phase two. Okay? How many phases are there? Okay, thank you.
Michelle?
I have a couple of questions. One, my understanding is, and it may help clarify
Make sure
for
you speak
people.
up.
I mean, you can't hear my big mouth like you normally do.
Loud as you can.
As loud as you can.
Michelle, this is the night.
You guys have heard me for 3 years at this, haggling with you guys. Correct me if I'm wrong, because this may help clarify for people that the information that was put into the system is based on what has been on our cards that have been around for a while, unless the town was notified of any changes in property, etc. You wouldn't know that to update the card unless we told you. Therefore, what went into the system is what was on the card, which drove what we have currently, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. just so that that's clarified, so that people understand. It wasn't a drive-by. It wasn't, not that I didn't see him out and about, trust me, in my neighborhood several times, which I almost came in because he was sitting in his truck several times, but we won't go there now. It's useless. The other thing I'd like to point out, for everybody to understand, is we let somebody go. No matter who it is. If we let somebody go within the town or otherwise, and it's a personnel matter, we have to be careful what we say, because if we let somebody go for conduct, do you really want to pay them more than what we already did? Because you're going to open us up to a liability lawsuit if we aren't careful about what we say. I think we paid people up to this point enough. I think we need to be careful about what we're talking about. I would say that if you need to know why we can't have a lot of answers to the questions that we have, that's part of it. I don't want to pay anybody anymore who hasn't done a good job, and I think we just need to leave it at that.
Thank you.
Yep.
The other thing I'd like to know, are additional cuts going to be looked at? Are we going to start looking at the budget now, rather than waiting until February, March? We're going to look at some things and be proactive now. I understand, I mean, I work for a major company. We've had thousands of jobs cut. I'm always glad that it wasn't me. But I understand we can't look at this as a personal level when it comes to cutting jobs. There's too many people here and in this town to look at 10 people that might lose their job or et cetera. And I understand we have to look at services as well. You're going to have to find a happy balance somewhere. If you get half the service versus none, you're better than none. You're getting half of it at least. I think we need to be a little proactive and start looking at it now instead of waiting till budget season. That would be, I mean, you probably don't have anything to say to it. It's just my own comment because I think you're going to start to be a little more prudent about it. Mr. Upham, at the last meeting on September 7th, I know you talked about the gallons per minute because he was questioning that and the fact that his well has to take care of 2 residences. What was not known at that point that had not come back was the actual water quality test. Has that come back? Because the gallons per minute is useless if the water is of no value.
No, the city engineer has not heard from the lab yet.
So it still hasn't come back. So we don't know. The GPM could mean
Right.
nothing at this point. Okay. The other thing I guess I would say is something personal, and so as to not point somebody out, I would say Facebook's a huge network, and it is within this community as well as nationally. Whether it's a counselor's spouse or a counselor, but in particular, in this particular case, a spouse, I would say, please be careful on what your spouses are saying, because it's being implied and being looked at as kind of jokingly that we could go to McDonald's and clear a McDonald's in our presence. I was very offended when I saw the comment. I have it with me,
Can you
but I
repeat
would
that?
rather. There was a comment on Facebook, and it was a counselor's spouse actually implying about some comments that were being made at one of the local town restaurants, and it was jokingly made that her and her spouse were going to go down, and they expect the restaurant to clear. I don't find that a joke. I think we are in despair. People are distraught. People are financially impacted by this. I don't find anything funny about it, and I was extremely offended when I read this comment. And I did forward it on to at least one person who sits up there because I found it very offensive. And I would just say, in these sensitive times, please be very careful with what people are saying out there, because that's the perception that's going to come back on each and every one of you as people within your family as well and what they're saying. And I think we need to be very sensitive to and tolerant at this point of what people are saying.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Mr.
My name's
Stein,
Don
yes.
Stein, 6 Douglas Street.
Yes, sir.
Was the man fired or laid off?
He was fired.
Fired. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name's Rick Graham. I'm on the Budget Advisory Board, and I would like to take a second to answer a portion of Michelle's question about cutting the budget next time around. I don't have any interest in even entertaining a budget that doesn't address this tax problem.
Frank Hogan, longtime resident, Lisbon Falls, my whole life. My family's raised here. We all live here. We have houses. Jump back to the budget here. The council, you guys closed at a 2% increase or whatever it was, Mike, the whole council.
Yeah, I think it was at around 2 or 3%. yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, I hate to see any increase. My taxes, I feel, are ridiculous. We probably pay around 4,700, whatever it is, for our home, acre and a third, whatever. I feel about 2,500 is where I'd be real comfortable, and I think probably everybody. But the large increase that was found, the shortfall, what have you, drove my taxes up $470 this year. So am I going to be, is that every year now? Is this shortfall that we came upon, is that in my taxes every year now?
Unless we find that something was done wrong in the system, the data in the system is wrong, that may be the increase, but it depends. It depends on what we do with our budget the coming year, depends if we add any valuation, it depends if we lose valuation. We know coming into next year, we anticipate through depreciation that we're going to lose another 1.7 million in value roughly, and that's with a lot of different people whose equipment is depreciating. The state program has changed, so they aren't reimbursing us for some of that. So there's a lot of things that come into play here. It also depends on the school budget.
How about today's values of everything? I mean, isn't everything, isn't the country, homes worth declining, a lot less money now?
That's
what's going on with Lisbon? Why the hell are we, excuse me, why are we always like paying taxes like Vegas or something? I mean, why are we always shining so much?
I mean,
we're Lisbon, 10,000 people, we got a little town here and fire department, I mean, what's the deal here?
Well, I mean, that gets to the phased approach that we're taking, right, we've done an assessment on the land values, and what we need to do...
Gotta be far-fetched, I mean, ridiculous.
Well, the land values haven't been implemented into the system yet, okay? So I don't know how they're gonna change. They may go down, right? They may go down based on the way the economy is. I don't know how they're in there now, right? So the next
I hope they follow the economy, because across the country, I watch national news. Go ahead, Mike.
The next piece is to do that whole building measure and everything, so that you've got both pieces together to make sure things are done fair and equitable.
Yeah, I really think we should do that.
The question becomes now, right, I mean, council's talking about a phased approach, but now with the shortfalls we're seeing here right now, the question will become how much money can we put into next year's budget that doesn't impact us any further, that allows us to go do this measure and stuff to get as equitable as we can.
But, I mean, we're raising money, we always need a lot of money. And you guys are running a business. I've run 3 businesses in my lifetime. They've all been successful, I think. Well, I guess we've done all right. But the tax collectors or the bill payers haven't come see us. But you're running a business, and I feel you're searching for money all the time to run your business. So I feel we need to make some cuts. I feel we need to restructure, because we're paying so much now, it's unbelievable. I got a son and I got a daughter own homes in Lisbon. They can't even scratch the surface probably start paying taxes like this, and plus live comfortable. So I think we should restructure the town government and do it with a committee of people, 25, 30, 50 people, a lot of input, and downsize possibly on some things, consolidate some things, get rid of some buildings, group things up, bring some departments to reality. Some departments need more help. We're not blind. I know some departments that need more help, and I know some departments that are blown out of proportion, like we all do. I hear it every day. So we're searching for large money. We're searching for large money all the time. I mean, where do you draw the line with that? You know? Yeah, let's restructure. Let's restructure, let's take a look at that sometime.
Frank, and I can't agree with you more as far as the idea of consolidating and moving things together and try to be more efficient, because that's what the world's all about, because let's face it, we have our expenses and we have our revenues, and when revenues start going down, like all of ours, somehow you need to get more efficient. The hardest thing is, I actually had Saturday, of course, I work every Saturday, and one of my customers I've had forever, a town resident, comes over and he said, I don't pity you for a job at all. And I said, you know, I guess you're ready for abuse when you sit up here.
Yeah.
And he said, I was at the football game, like all Lisbon people do on a good Saturday morning, he says, and one guy walks up to me and used a lot of four-letter words talking about the town, how bad it is, and overtaxed, and the buildings are falling down, and the school's really bad, and just speaking his heart about the town. And unfortunately, to fix all that, what do you need? Unfortunately, money, so it's a balance, and then within a few minutes later, he was at the football field saying, Lisbon really deserves to have a football field out light, so we can be a real school, and we really ought to have a nicer field, and maybe we ought to fix up the school. And have you looked in the gymnasium lately? So, it's really hard to have the balance of saying, we need to fix something, but we don't have the money, but on the other hand, wanting more.
So I understand, that's maintenance. It's maintenance of what we have.
Absolutely, but it's
all about maintenance. When you construct something, there's new maintenance. We put in the bus stops. Has anybody looked at them? I mean, a woman couldn't walk in there with high heels, she'd break a leg. The cement's all gone on the bases. They're all shit. They look terrible. But we put them in. But there's maintenance to all that stuff.
Downfall is not a line on our budget to fix those probably either. I mean, that's a problem. Our budget's been cut.
So really, they probably shouldn't have been there. Just put a sign, bus stop.
Probably you're right.
Let the little lady sit there, like our grandmothers did with an umbrella. Probably would have saved us a bunch of money.
And if you look, one thing that I really encourage people to do is through the budget season, really come in and actually just take a really good, hard look at the budget.
Yeah.
And to me, it was offensive when I came in, and it's buildings, when you work down the bowling alley, if you had a bowling alley the size of the high school with all the buildings, and you only had the maintenance factor of $10,000 for everything,
right?
And that's improvements and repairs, you look at it and say, there's no way you can do it, right? And same thing, you got to invest in what you have, but at the end of the day, there's easy things to cut, and unfortunately, those things get cut, and it's not always fair. The idea of consolidating things, I totally agree, but this is where we always get back to the idea of, since I've been on the council, again, I learned more the first year I was on the council, living in town of my life. I had no idea how this town worked. You know what I mean? I thought I did, but at the end of the day, I really didn't. Is the idea of coming together and trying to figure out how to make it as good as town as we can, because since all this has been going on, I've had people stop over and say, I really like this town. I love to complain, but I'd like to do what I can to keep it this town. We don't want to turn into, a place that none of us desire to live, So again, I think if people come into the budget season and look, as Dale said, when I was actually coming up here interviewing for the council one time, Dale was, do you really know what you're getting involved in? This isn't a one night a week or a 2 night a week. He said, geez, this week we've been here every night this week.
No, I appreciate what you guys do. The town people do, but, we got to restructure.
We got to
restructure.
We got to get together.
Downsize the business a little bit, and we got to restructure it. I hear a lot of good ideas. I'm always out in public, as you know, at Hoagie's Hot Dog Stand. I won't plug that, though, tonight. But you hear a lot of good ideas.
Yeah.
If this one merged with this one makes money. If this one merged with this one, it would take the burden off this one. There's a lot of, so we really got to get, and I didn't want to get in politics until maybe I was 60, because I wanted to cruise through this for a while. But, I'm willing to, if you want to reconstruct a little bit.
On council night.
Well, if they want to put something together where they take a look at the future here. This isn't a quick fix for what's going on now, and I don't know how you guys are going to resolve any of this, because I couldn't figure it out, but this is the future, what I'm talking about. So I'd like to take a look at that, and, if people want to talk about it, come down and get a hot dog. And then we'll see the legality of Mr. Lawyer here. We'll see if we can get a little committee of a nice group and talk about restructuring things.
Steve, you had a comment? I'd just like to point out, this council has been restructuring how their budget is. And just to give you some numbers, in 2008, the town municipal budget was $7.3 million, okay? Last year, We dropped it by 9%. It was 6.7. It went up again this year, a little bit, 3%, to 6.9. And they've lost 15% of their workforce. And that's just on the expenditure side. Let's talk about the revenue side.
but did
In
they need to-
2008, you had $3.4 million coming in total revenue. Most of the bigger amounts come in from the state of Maine, okay? It dropped 3% from the prior year. 2009, that revenue went down to 2.7. That's a 21% drop in revenue that the town takes in from other sources, not taxes at all, okay? And this year, we pretty much kept the revenue flat. And luckily, we saw a little bit better on the excise tax than we expected. But you keep dropping your expenses, which is a good thing. The problem is that we keep losing revenue every year from the state and other areas. So those are the things, they are doing, I think, their job in trying to present a balanced budget and live within our means. And like I said Friday, you're still seeing people waiting in lines out here because we have fewer people. And you see the same thing at the transfer station.
Yeah, but I don't mind, I don't mind standing in line 5 or 10 minutes up there, register my vehicle.
Yeah.
Instead of coming in, there's 4 people. Downsize a little bit. We might have old buildings in town that we still hold paper on, that maybe we should let go. I'm not sure.
We've got rid of one of our buildings.
Okay, one of them, but we may have more.
Of them.
And I don't know for sure, but look them over, and if we don't really need them, the economy's so bad, the times are so bad across the country, let's let them go.
Money we've invested in our buildings over the last few years, what I can speak to now is grant money. We got an $85,000 grant from the Efficiency Maine. We're insulating the garage, and that's another project that nobody wanted to pay for. And it's falling apart.
Right.
But we fixed the concrete work last year. We're insulating the building this year with federal money, and we're replacing a boiler with federal money. And we're going to the MTM Center with whatever we have left over to replace windows.
Right. But if we were a fine-tuned business, it would be in the maintenance already to take care of those.
Well,
if we were small enough.
It wasn't done before. We're trying to do that now.
But, you stay with stuff, you keep maintenance going. I'm looking at this brand-new air system we got here. Has anyone been up to change the filters? Do you know there's any filters up there?
Yep.
You have an air handler up there.
We have an outfit that does that,
Well,
mechanical services.
They're not doing their job. I did air handling for a few years, and I pick up on that stuff, but anyway, I'd like to see restructure, and get a fine tune, a nice town to live in, and, we're here for long term, so.
Quick comment. I'd like to bring something up that I think a lot of people are missing right now. We have an issue right here that is very dear to us because it hit us in the wallet. So the room is pretty full, down into the hall. But on a regular council meeting, we don't have anybody here, maybe 3 or 4 people. And we've had some issues where we brought people, with the school, we had brought their budgets to you people and wanted you people to come in and look at them and give your opinion. We had 6 people show up. We can't have involvement only when it costs us in the wallet. If we want a town to work, we've got to work at our town.
That's right.
And we have boards. We can't find people to get on our boards. The appeals board, the planning board, there's always vacancies. We need people to get involved. And we don't only get involved at tax time. We've got to get involved all year long. And I just beg of you people to step up and help us out. And maybe some of these good ideas will come about and the town will go in the direction that we want it to. We can find fault with this council, but we've also got to have the support of the people. You people have got to come out and help us out and give us your opinion. Tell us what you want. Let it be known what you want. If you don't, then you're leaving it up to the council, and if it isn't the decision you want, then who's really to blame for it? So the only thing that I ask is step up, get involved, make the changes you want, and you will have the town that you choose to have.
Will they listen to us?
You bet we'll listen to you. You bet we'll listen to you.
He's right.
Absolutely we'll listen to you.
At our next year's budget hearing in the spring,
You know?
if half of you show up, that'd be a huge improvement over last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we want to do what we can for the people of this community because it's our town. This is the only little town that we can really, now, I've been here 55 years. I've got a little bit of interest here. And I'd like to see this town be where I want it to be. But unless we get involved and work together to get what we want, we're never going to have it. And it takes more than a couple of weeks during tax time. Thanks a lot.
Okay. You're not a resident of town, Mr. Sampson.
Well, I'm going to request that he speaks.
I'm not letting Mr. Sampson speak.
We want him to speak.
I do, yes.
He's a former employee.
Absolutely, Mike.
He's a former employee, and
I'm not letting him speak.
Make a motion that Mr. Sampson be allowed to speak.
And I second it.
that's right.
Hey, Mike, you let a guy that was motion been made and seconded, right?
That's right.
Well, actually, you let Jerry speak Friday, and what's the difference tonight? You let another gentleman speak. Let him speak, Mike. Mike, get it on the table is what the people want. Get it on the table.
That's right, Mike, come on.
There's a motion and there's a second.
What are you afraid of?
What I'm afraid of is that what happened Friday night, right, was Mr. Sampson set out some numbers, which council has had no opportunity to look at. I would prefer Mr. Sampson to come in and talk with the town manager and everybody and review this information. If Mr. Sampson has all the answers, he has all the answers, let him come in.
Whatever we want, you give us. We want to hear him talk. We want him. You said that. Participation. What are you afraid of? Every single question that you...
Let's take a vote, Mike. Take a vote.
Excuse me.
He can answer.
Excuse me. He just I know he has additional information, that's why I want him to speak. There's additional information from the first time he spoke, so that's why I'm requesting it.
It's additional and factual. Review it tomorrow.
Taxpayers would like to hear him.
Yep. That's why we don't come here, we don't get your support. Let's take a vote. Why come?
I would prefer him to come work with our tax assessor. I'm not afraid of the truth.
Let him speak, Mike.
No, sir. Mike, go right into front. How about the rest of the councilors?
I say we let him speak.
Well, how many councilors want Mr. Sampson to speak?
All right.
Can we ask
I
that?
have a motion. Please keep order, please. I have a motion on the floor to have Mr. Sampson speak.
I seconded it.
Yep, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, it won't take 5 minutes. First of all, I want to say, Bill Van Tynen is, for those who worry about it, don't have to worry about it, because he is very, very capable. I'm sure he can get to the bottom of it. The only other thing I'm going to say tonight, and I've offered to come to talk to the council, whoever wants to talk to me, so I don't have an issue with that.
That'd be great.
As far as why this happened, you can't raise more money than the budget. So for it doesn't go person to person, because some people's values are different, but every person in this room's taxes went up. Well, just as many people had to have had their taxes go down, because the overall couldn't have changed. So if you've gone up a third on one end, some went down a third. The people who didn't get factored up, in effect, went down a third. If you had a $100,000 business, say a business, last year you paid based on $2,550, you paid $2,550. If you didn't get factored up, then this year you're paying $2,160. If you did get factored up, it would have gone up. If every account in town were factored up to 80% like it was supposed to, there would be a zero effect other than the budget. So
You feel, Jerry, that the direction that we're going in with Mr. Van Tyne is the correct way to actually resolve, or at least come to the bottom of what we're seeing? I mean, that's from what you said, you feel that he's a capable person to do the job.
Yes. What can happen, and I think will happen, is they'll find that not all the town was factored up. And once you do that next year, the people whose taxes went up this year will go down. They won't go down as much as they went up because the budget's going to go up next year. There's all these ins and outs. But basically, they went up 2 mils more than they should have, and they might go down next year. The tax bills, the overall tax bill should still be lower for these people than they were last year, and if the other people go up, they'll just be paying the same amount. It's not it shouldn't have been such a swing. And it can't be just one individual company. It's got to be tens of millions of dollars to do this. You have to, it has to be like $70 million in value that was not factored up somehow. That's it.
Thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
I'm still Don Fellows, and I still live in Lisbon side. Roger, I don't always agree with what you said, but you said something pretty strongly that we need to get the community involved. I agree with all of the council 100% in that the participation last year in the budget process, which I'm currently chairman of the advisory committee, so I'd like to see people get involved too. We particularly have a vacancy on the advisory board that is now open and not being run for. And if the town is really involved about and cares about how much money we're spending and where it's all going and evaluation and all those things, I would think we could at least find one person that would get it together and either get it written in or whatever, and let's find somebody else on our advisory board. Thank you.
Robin Tupper. How often, on average, is a reval done to keep it fairly current?
I don't know. Well, it varies with each town. Some people say every 10 years, but it depends on a lot of things. If you see a huge economic shift and the value of property, like the big bubble we had, change, then it might be prudent to do that. What I was saying when I first got here, it'd probably be a good time to do a reval because the bubble burst and values were all over the place here. The last time you did a reval here, from what I understand, was 1988. So that's a long time ago, and values have changed considerably. So basically, you really need to do a reval. And we were able to do it. I think this year we had it in our budget, and it was around $60,000 if we did it in-house. We would hire part-time people, pay them per household that they go visit, so it was an incentive to get the houses done and do it right, enter the stuff into the system, and we felt we could probably get it done, along with Mr. Van Tynen having done the land value. Again, when Mr. Van Tynen comes on board, I will ask him if it's something that he feels that next budget season he would participate with us, because he does do revals, and we hire college students or anybody who can read a tape measure and fill out a piece of paper to what is on there and validate what's on the card. But you haven't done it here since 1988. That's a long time.
Yeah, and I understand that we're going to need to do it because it's been that long, but knowing that we're never going to have $300,000 or $400,000 chunk to do this, and it needs to be done every 10 years, is there a way to put it into the budget so that we are putting $30,000 or $40,000 away a year, so every 10 years we have the money to do that?
You could do that, yeah.
Yeah, the pay-as-you-go, I mean, we actually expressed that in great lengths, that on every department on a pay-as-you-go type of program where you're actually putting money aside every year, so when you have that big expense, you can do it. The downfall is to start putting money away, you're going to have extra money put away. If you make $1,000, you spend $1,000, it's really hard to put money away at the end of the month. So to start that
And I realize that if you do it the first year, you're going to have $330,000 or $340,000 to that first year because you've got that first installment as well.
Right.
But
Yep.
we have to start looking because we're never going to have $300,000 or $400,000 chunk to do this.
We're looking for
And it-
donations, though.
Well, but I mean,
No.
10 years from now, who knows? We could be in worse shape than we are now.
Right, absolutely. No,
So,
excellent point.
I'm Mildred Ryder. My son Darren Ryder has his own business, roofing and construction. He's come in, he's registered all his vehicles, paid everything he's supposed to. Why are they trying to tax him again on his equipment? Does everybody that has their own business get re-taxed on their,
They get taxed on businesses get taxed on what's called personal property. So, I mean, I guess, I don't know what's all considered personal property, but I guess his ladders for supporting his construction job or whatever would have some type of tax on that, right? I mean, what you end up doing is you fill out a validation form that you get from the tax assessor, and you put in there, I've got these pieces of equipment, I purchased them in this year, and they were worth X number of dollars when I purchased them, and then the tax assessor takes that information, and it goes through a depreciation process. They have special tables or whatever that they use to take that based on the year and the value, and then it gets depreciated over time, so that you get taxed on what, for the current year you're in, what's that depreciated value? What's this value left on that equipment? Excuse me?
Required by the state.
Right, it's required by the state.
We need to vote that out of the state of Maine.
There you go. Talk to Dale.
I'll vote it.
I don't
so he
disagree
has
with
to
you.
pay every single year on the equipment?
Each year he would pay on his equipment, but it will depreciate so that the tax would go down each year if he didn't buy any more new equipment, right? If he went out and bought a new bending machine or something for his siding business or something, then that would be a new investment for him that year that probably wouldn't have much depreciation on because he bought it that year. And so he would get taxed on that, but the rest of his equipment he had would continue to de-escalate.
Well, I have my own business, are they gonna re-tax me on my car to get back and forth to work?
No.
After I've registered it?
No, because you pay an excise tax on your vehicle, so you don't get taxed on that.
You don't have a mop or a scrub brush, do you?
I do, I have my own
I hope it's
cleaning
depreciated.
stuff. So he's gonna get taxed every year for his ladders and his trailer and stuff.
Based on a depreciation schedule.
Is there any way we can do away with that?
As Mr. Kraft pointed out, if you can get state legislation passed so that
Or how
you
do
don't have
we
to...
go about getting that started?
Well, you can start with...
Dale, next time you go up, let me know, I'm going
I'll
with you.
tell you, now, you're getting me political now.
I'm going
Number
with you next
second,
time.
that's how we can change it.
Do what? I'll be there.
Michelle?
Sorry, I need some clarification, because I was here in April for that personal property tax hearing. Can you clarify something for me? Because I was here at that personal property tax hearing last April, when a lot of the businessmen came in and spoke. It was put out there that it is out there as far as a state guideline, but it's not a required tax, that you don't have to take it. And that had come out, and I never heard any clarification as to whether or not it is something that we do have to do, or not, since up to this point, not everybody had been. Did that get clarified?
I think it gets to an equity thing, right? We cannot charge personal property tax, but it's across the board. So that means Dingley doesn't pay, any of the businesses, the council could elect, I believe, to say, nobody's going to pay personal property tax.
So you're saying it is a voluntary thing? That was what I didn't hear
It's
answered
not
at that
it's
meeting.
not a one-person, Mr. Kraft's over here, we don't want him to pay tax, but,
That's
Mr.
not what I'm
Bickford over here, we want him to pay tax.
That's not what I'm asking.
Right, it's across the board. It's either pay no property tax within the town
Right.
for any business, or everybody pays property tax.
Which is what I asked. It's a voluntary thing. The town doesn't have to do it. And up to this point, some had, some hadn't, and you're doing it across the board. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That's what I was asking, because up to this point, that was something that came out at that public hearing, and I'd never heard an answer as to, do we have to do it, or is it a voluntary thing? Yes, I understand it's out there within the state, but it's up to us as a town, or to you guys, or whoever makes a decision, whether or not we're going to do it. And obviously, you have to do it across the board, otherwise you're discriminating, and you can't
Right.
do that.
Correct.
So I just wanted to understand that it is something that we are doing as a town across
Correct.
the board.
Respond back to that, or do you want me to wait
Could
for
I
it?
just say something to that? That would mean we would lose a lot of tax revenue.
Oh, no, I get that.
Just
No,
so
I just wanted
some people,
clarification
I
from
know
that
you do,
meeting,
but
yeah.
I'm just saying, that would mean we would lose all the tax revenue that Dingley Press gives us, all the others, Hoagie's Hot Dogs gives us, whatever. We would lose all of that tax revenue.
Frank?
That's why, as I mentioned, Jerry's here, and if you really trust Jerry, Jerry could tell us how much money we would lose, and I'm not sure if Jerry has the actual numbers, but he could probably tell us there's enough money to lose that we'd all be scared when we get on that next tax bill.
Oh, no,
Really
no,
do.
I'm not saying that. I just wanted clarification and follow up to that meeting, because it was raised, and I never heard any answer to it, so I just wanted to be clear, because I, like Dale and everybody else, I'm done with the rumors.
You're
I just-
correct.
I mean,
Right. Yeah.
I'm pleased tonight to say that I'm seeing you guys come together more so than I have in the 3 years that I've been coming here. Granted, some of the seats are a little different, but I've been coming here, and you guys know I've hounded you for 3 years with stuff, good, bad, ugly, and otherwise, and asked for answers to questions. I feel disheartened that it's taken something like this, though, to get you guys to collaborate. That's the sad part. And I would love to see this room fill up like this, not just because I, like everybody else, has been hit in the pocket. I'd like to see everybody here because the town is important enough to come, not just your tax bill.
Thank you.
We definitely need to be like that lady right there. We need to participate more. But I'm glad to hear that this personal property is voluntary, as you just said. I mean, no, I mean, you just said the town can do it or can't do it.
Correct.
Right. That's what I meant by that statement. So what I mean, again, by restructuring, is if we ran a leaner business and our expenses were a lot less, there's example right there, we could drop that from everybody. And I think Dingley Press, Mike?
I don't know the exact number,
Again,
but
well, I know, but again,
we charge, I believe we charge, the personal property tax within the town is around $30 million. There's $30 million worth of personal property tax between all the businesses in town that get charged a tax on, right? Our budget between the school and the town is, what, 14 million? So if you eliminated, you could consolidate to 7 million, right? If you could get everything to 7 million.
Yeah.
I mean, if you eliminated personal property tax, I believe, I don't think we
that's what
could
keeps the
stomach
town,
this.
I mean, that's a big part of what
That's a
keeps
hot
the
beat of the
chicken.
town right there, if you
Yeah.
want to know the
That's-
truth.
Okay.
Big piece of
That's
that.
the cash, that's the revenue.
It's a huge tax break to the industrial people, like, Miller Hydro and Dingley, and, you just move all the burden to the regular taxpayers.
Yeah,
That's the problem with it.
yeah. So the small businessman, we,
Pay, a small amount.
someone just decided we've got to start the small businessman too, because this is all new to me.
It's kind of the law, unfortunately. I mean,
Excuse me?
unfortunately, it's kind of the law. I mean, you're
Yeah,
either.
well, I mean, it's just started, you guys just started applying this to the smaller, this is new to these people.
Blue assessor's, opinion.
It just came out because it was identified in the changeover that we weren't doing this
Yeah.
correctly.
Okay, well, that's
by
what I'm
law.
saying, it's new to people.
Right, oh, absolutely.
And I
Yeah.
hear it all over town, and
Very new.
people trying to hide stuff, and they're moving it to Bowden, and, they're building, I mean, no, you ought to hear the stories.
You're gonna keep that hot dog stand in town?
Guys, I'll camouflage that thing right up.
Frank, you don't fly your hot dogs, do you?
Excuse me?
You don't fly your hot dogs, right?
Well, hide them in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points with that, sorry, Frank, but a couple of points of that, we never paid property tax up until this year, personal property tax, and ours went up $1,400. That's a new tax for us, $1,400. And also, there is a program that the state will reimburse you up to 90% of your tax dollars. So when I go in and I pay my $1,400 willingly, I can get as much as 90% back. I have to list and do a bunch of things to give the state that figure, but they will in fact give me the money back. So tell me if that makes sense or not.
Where do we get
once again, excuse me, once again, remember, a lot of these problems go right up to Augusta. So what you need to do is call your sitting legislator and ask him to do... Sorry, but that's, I'm telling you that a lot of what's been said, it turns back to Augusta, and who has been in control up there, need I say any more, for a long, long time, so...
And to get any of that information, all you need to do is go in and see the assessor, and they can provide you the forms and help you fill out the information so that you can get it submitted to get your rebate. John?
Good evening. John Wiersbicky, Lisbon resident. One thing I found out quite recently, and it was mentioned earlier, a possible veterans discount on taxes. I checked into it, and if you are a veteran and basically you're over 62 and a half years old, you come in, you fill out a form, and next year taxes, you're going to have a 10% reduction in them. So real simply, call in and see Mr. Tynan if you're a veteran and you're over 62 and a half, and that will help you on your taxes a little bit. The second one, and I want to reiterate a little bit what Councilor Kraft said, it's really important. If you hear a rumor, and my job there at the post office, I talk to a lot of people, I hear a lot, I heard this about this person, you need to think about what you're hearing. If you hear a negative rumor, ask about it, because if you don't ask and you just pass it on, eventually one of the people that's going to hear it, or one of the groups, is possibly a business that's going to come into this town. And if they hear negative things about the town, they might start thinking, having second or third thoughts if they're going to even come here. Talked about Facebook. I heard a very negative thing about the Androscoggin widens down here, and that's where all the scum comes, right into Lisbon. If a business sees that, do they want to come into this town? We need to be very careful what we say, and don't just pass on a rumor. Ask about it. Geez. Otherwise, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. I like this town. I've only been here 12 years, but I've become very attached to it. I want to spend the rest of my life here, and I want it to be a better place, and we can't do it if all we're doing is passing out negative stuff. Let's ask. Good luck. Thank you.
For that
Okay, any additional public comment? All right, seeing none. Next item.
I have one question.
Oh, yes, ma'am?
Instead of putting the whole load on Dale, if everybody that had a small business went to Augusta, would that help? To put in a complaint for them being taxed for all this stuff?
Dale gets broad shoulders, though.
Well, the process really is to go through your legislator.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, and so that's my job.
Okay.
Organize a rally.
I mean, sure, come on up when we got a nice big bill that we're trying to change these things, and come rally with me, and we can change some stuff, but I'll have to inform you on that.
I have another lady.
Yes, ma'am, sure.
I just would like to know why we always want to grow. I mean, we have a beautiful, small, comfortable town, and all I ever hear about is how we got to get more businesses into town, and I mean, you talk about the tax base, and we want to make it so that we have more money in the budget, and that kind of stuff. Why is it we're never happy with what we have, and embrace our town, the way it is? I mean, it's always like getting bigger and bigger. So what we're going to do, we're going to move Walmart in, and Kmart's going to come down the street, and it'll be easy for us to walk to the store. But is that what we want? I mean, what do we want?
Yeah.
You want Kmart?
I'm going to. Yes.
Go on.
I want to say something.
Yes, Bill?
I would like...
I don't know. Matters what kind of jobs you bring in. I mean...
I would like to try to answer that, and the problem being is just take health insurance.
Speak up.
Just take the health insurance that goes up every year in this town. It's an astronomical number. And so if we don't have some growth, and I agree, there's got to be a balance, then we won't be able to keep up with, taxes will keep going up. And unfortunately, you need to grow a little bit and create new revenue, more revenue, to keep up with inflation, cost of health insurance. I mean, that's just the nature of today's
Whose health insurance are you talking about?
town's
The town employees?
Yeah.
Oh, what about mine? I don't have health insurance, okay? How is that going to help me? I mean, even though we work, I can't afford health insurance, so I hear all this stuff about growing and becoming bigger and us paying more, and, it's not helping us at all. but
I hear what you're saying, and I agree, but there's more factors than just health insurance. The salt that goes down the road that goes up every year, the cost of fuel that goes up every year, it just goes on and on and on, electricity. All these things that we have to pay for to run this town keeps going up. So if you don't bring in more revenue, it's either we cut it out completely, which is where we need to head anyways, not completely, or we raise your taxes. That's why we're sitting here tonight, partly, because there's not enough revenue. When the state cuts you, you wait till next year, and I don't like being negative, but we got a bigger cut coming this next budget in Augusta than we had the last one. There's a $1.3 billion shortfall in Augusta coming. It's not a good picture.
Just a couple of things. I'd just like to approach growth. Chances of Walmart or Kmart or Target coming here are pretty slim. They would have to be really desperate to come to the town of Lisbon. You know, I'm not trying to be funny, but it's the truth. Generally, when any of those big chain stores look at an area, there has to be a certain populace in that area, and we don't have it. Okay, we haven't grown a lot in the last 10 years. But business, and I've harped on this for many, many years, just like Dale said, business needs to come to this community, because when business comes to this community, they improve buildings, they bring in, and I know we just got over talking about personal property tax, but they bring in things with their business that help the town to receive revenue. Morris Bono, I don't know if any of you have been into his business, but Morris put a lot of money into that business. It's a beautiful business. It brings people from all over the state. He does mail orders. He ships to Hawaii. Wouldn't it be great if those same people that got sausage shipped to Hawaii decided to come and visit Lisbon, Maine? What do we have to offer them? We have Moxie, which is great.
Got plenty of cops.
But that's another issue, Roger, and you know it. But you have to understand economic development, and businessmen that sit in this community, and I see some nodding their head, at least I know there's 2 or 3 that agree with me, it's important. I remember downtown when I was just a little girl, and I remember when we had Duntons and Rosenbergs and all those fun little places. They weren't big box businesses. They were the place that we went on Christmas Eve when my father always ran out of flash bulbs. Always. That's where we went on Christmas Eve. What did you do? You went to Tina's Bakery. You got a cake for your kid's birthday. Those are the kind of things we're looking at, trying to improve local business, local people that are here, and they're mad just like you are tonight because their taxes went up. But the more we ignore that, the more we're going to lose it. The more it's not going to come. Excuse me?
Rosie did bring anything down.
I don't agree with you, Mr. Doyon, but that's fine. We're going to continue on with what I have to say. I do have the floor, sir. But you can put down whoever you want to put down, but business is important. We have the Furniture Superstore that's on Lisbon Road. We have Floor Systems. We have several other big businesses in this town, and they chose to come to Lisbon. Floor System gets asked all the time why they came to Lisbon, Maine. You know why they came to Lisbon, Maine? Because Gil Veyu is from this town, and he chose to bring his local owned business to this town because he wanted to help his community. So don't shake your head and say business isn't important, because it is. And I look around this room, and many of you tonight own businesses in here. Your families have been here forever. So that is a revenue source for us. You may not understand it. You may not see how it's going to help one bit, but it will. And that's why what Frank said and what we've all tried to say tonight is we need to work together, and we need to stop putting down what others are trying to do, because it's very important to this town.
One thing that I like to bring up to everybody here, and I don't mention this very often, but we did cut the police department this year. 2 positions, but the price that it cost us went up because of the cost of contracts, insurances, and everything that goes with it. So in order for us to cut that budget hard, we're going to be losing services. Is everybody ready for that? You know, is everybody ready for a smaller fire department? These are things that we're gonna have to look at next year, and when we come out and tell you people we're gonna be cutting these, I'm sure we're gonna be getting called, why are you cutting our police department, why are you cutting our fire department? This is the reason, these are the kind of things that decisions we're gonna have to make.
Okay. All right, next item.
Appointments, Order 2010-157, Board of Appeals reappointment, one term expiring 2013.
Okay, council, we have a reappointment for Morgan Alexander. I believe she's sitting out back.
Mike, can we make a motion to bring all of them forth at one time? Is that possible to do?
If council is okay with that, yeah.
Yep. Is 5?
If council's okay with that, I would entertain a motion for appointing for the Board of Appeals, the Recreation Committee, the Planning Board appointment, and the Library Governing Board.
Should mention who they are.
And they are Morgan Alexander, Steve Curtis for Recreation, Jeffrey Ganong for the Planning Board, and Richard Golden for the Library Governing Board.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion from Councilor Mason, a second from Councilor Crafts. Any discussion?
Just, I'd like to say all of these names are very familiar to us. We are people that have lived in town for many, many years, and I think they're all very qualified, and we thank them for even coming forward.
Thank you very much, yeah.
Thank you for participating. We need everybody that wants to get involved.
Absolutely.
All those in favor?
Vote passed, 7-0.
Okay, next item.
Counselor Communications.
Councilor Communications. Dale.
I just want to thank everybody for coming. I think that sometimes when we have frustration, it's because it's lack of knowledge. I think that, you know, there's some things that we're still investigating that's caused part of this problem, and so, you know, knowledge resolves it. And by you coming and listening and understanding and being patient with us, we're all going to get through this. But lots of times it is lack of knowledge and understanding of how government works. It's very complicated. I can tell you my first term up there in Augusta was a straight-up learning curve, and I still have a lot to learn because government has grown, and the way they do things, no business would do it that way. And so the complication of our tax system here took me years to start to understand it being on this council. So for the public to come and get involved in a meeting or two, it's almost impossible to understand it. And I understand the frustration, but, you know, knowledge helps you to do that. So thanks for coming and listening and being patient with us tonight.
Yep. Vernon?
Again, thank you very much. I mean, one of the things that's really hard as a counselor, and I had someone stop over the shop the other day and said, you know, it's kind of too bad you're there, but what, you know, we voted you in, so now you got to serve the people. It's your duty, which is right, and we're here to do it. You know, as a counselor, I guess we'd want to apologize for actually not having all the questions, and I wish I had all the answers, and if I had all the answers, I'd probably be doing really well, but unfortunately, we don't. But hopefully you give us a respect as a council of trying to work hard to give us time so we can get the answers. And I think Steve, and there's a request from many of the councilors, are actually moving forward to hopefully work with well-respected people to give us the right answers, and not just my opinion or Dale's opinion or someone's opinion, because opinions really don't move us forward, and we really need facts. And hopefully, again, I just want to thank you for giving us the time, hopefully, to get those answers to you. And with that being said, I think we're just trying to do the best we can. I mean, we're all townspeople like everybody else, and we all want good for the town, and tonight I appreciate the respect that hopefully you're giving us to move forward and hopefully try to solve these problems. One of the things I do want to mention moving forward is, and I even stopped at Mike's house the other night and mentioned to him, I said, what scares me the most is if we find that these are true and we are missing several $1,000s is going into next year's budget, it's not a place I really want to be. I mean, it is going to be a difficult year, and not just on our side with the school. I mean, I kind of communicate with the school board a little bit, and it's part of one of the roles I took on the council, and, you know, just giving them a heads up saying, hey, look, you know, you cut a lot of teachers out this year, and they said, yeah, we should be good next year. And I said, well, you're only good if we can make this budget work. If you got to go back and and eliminate another dozen teachers, it's going to be a tough road. So I think we got to be really careful when we start looking at the budget. When we start talking about losing services, we got to be really careful. I mean, we have a volunteer fire department in this town. If you don't remember, we have a volunteer fire department. So if you start saying we're going to cut the volunteers, you're kind of going against everything that you're talking about tonight about people coming together to help. So be careful where you say you're going to cut and where you want to slice, because you got to go do it with some practicalities. I mean, you got to be kind of careful on who you're really picking apart. I mean, if anybody in this town has been volunteers for years, I don't think you'll find anybody as faithful as a volunteer fire department. So, I mean, hopefully they don't have a meeting tomorrow night and say, oh my God, there's no one in this town that supports us, they want to cut us, because it's really hard to cut volunteers and feel good about it. So, again, we'll do what we can, but let's try to move forward cautiously and not jump off the bridge, because I think we still got plenty of road ahead of us, so that's my comment.
Anything else?
I got something I'd like to ask. We've got a pretty good crowd here tonight, and I want to thank you all for coming out here and participating. I have a question I'd like to ask all of you. Would you like to vote on your municipal budget next year, like you do the school budget? With a show of hands, just would you or would you not like to vote on your municipal budget? The council can see it. I fought for it hard last year, and I was told that nobody wanted it, and I would just wanted to bring that across. Thank you.
Can I just bring something forth about that? And that is what the people want, but also according to charter, there is a process to do that. So what you need to do, if it's something you really want to do, you need to get a copy of the charter, you need to read the charter and understand what needs to be done to do that. It's not something we as a council are allowed to vote on and allowed to happen. There's a certain process, it's a petition, so many people need to sign a petition, on and on. It needs to go to vote, it needs to be voted on, and then it becomes law. So just so you know, there is some process to it.
And it can be done by the council.
Okay, we need to look at the charter and be sure what needs to be done, Roger. We talked about it in the past. Right, but it needs to be voted on, so there's a process,
Well, then provide the information for the people.
which we will do.
The charter is up on the website, if you want to look at that. It's go to the lisbonme.org, and the charter is right there.
I looked for it the other day and I
Very
could
hard
not
to
find it.
I'll find it for you, Don. I found it
Yeah,
myself.
I found it the other night too, Dot. You do got to go through some different windows, but it is there. It took a bit, but it's there.
Any other council communications? Okay, next item.
Executive session, Order 2010-161, to go into executive session per 1 MRSA, Section 4056, consultations with legal counsel.
I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive session for the order.
I have a motion from Councilor Rochelle, a second from Councilor Crafts. All those in favor?
Pass
Thank you all.
7-0.
What's that?
So cold in here.